You're listening to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. I'm Allison Boyle, aka She Dreams of Alpine, and this is the show that's dedicated to all the adventurous spirits out there who have either been transformed by the outdoors or are interested in what it looks like to step into a new, adventurous, and courageous kind of identity in their life. It doesn't matter what your background is in the outdoors, what age you're starting at, or where you grew up. If you're curious about the outdoors and using adventure as a way to reinvent yourself, you're in the right place. I'll be sharing all kinds of personal adventure stories, lessons I've learned from the mountains, teaching what I know about the outdoors and leadership, and interviewing some amazing adventurous women all along the way. I've been coaching women on becoming safe, confident, and self-sufficient backpackers and leaders of their own adventurous lives since 2018, and I know exactly what big fears and self-doubts can pop up along the way. I have so much to share with you, so let's dive in. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. It is almost the new year, and you're listening to episode 81, if you can believe it. I certainly can't. When I was typing that out the other day, I was just like, oh my gosh, we started this podcast, the Adventurous Reinvention podcast, about a year ago. I think we started it in late October of 2024. And so it's been about a year and we've already published 81 episodes, which is just wild to me. I remember because I wanted to start this podcast for a long time and I was overthinking it. And then finally October 2024, I was just like, let's do it scrappy. Let's get it out there. Let's get started. So this is just a testament to doing the thing that is on your list, unrelated to this podcast episode. But I just think it's kind of amazing. Like once you get started with something, how much momentum you can create once you just decide to give up your perfectionism, like me, which is oftentimes a lot of my problem. So anyways, today I wanted to give you a little behind the scenes peek at what is on my personal adventure radar for 2026. As we enter the new year, I've been thinking a lot about this. And I'll talk about, what big adventures I'm planning, what client trips that we have planned, my focus, adventure focus is for the year, because I kind of have a focus. I'll talk a little bit more about that in today's episode. And then also I like to touch on, how I plan to integrate adventure into my day-to-day life this year as well. Because, there's the big trips and then there's the day-to-day thing. So I just wanted to give you a sneak peek at all of that, and maybe it will help get your wheels turning for yourself too. I did a similar episode like this last year, and I just always think it's kind of fun to give people a behind the scenes and hear what people are focused on each year, because everybody's different. And I think that's what you'll find. I have been kind of in my adventure era since 2013 when I first found backpacking. And I've talked about that on other episodes, kind of what that transition has been like over the years. But, now my focus and priorities, they change each year. And each year I have a different focus in my adventure era. And I'm always recommitting to my own adventure era. So anyways, that kind of leads me to, before we dive into today's episode, I did want to let you know about our upcoming free event called the Your Adventure Era Challenge, and how you can sign up today to join us in this 5-day challenge that we will be hosting on January 12th through 16th. So first of all, you can go and find out all the information about this challenge at shedreamsofalpine.com/challenge. And it has everything that you need to know about this free event, what's included, what we're covering each day, all of the things. But in summary, in this challenge, we're going to be helping you take massive actions to make sure that 2026 is the year that you step into your very own adventure era, or recommit if you're like me, which means go on the most hiking and backpacking adventures ever, meet some of your adventure besties and cultivate your adventure community, getting stronger than ever, feeling confident in your skills every single time that you hit the trail, and, quite possibly doing things that you never imagined were possible for you. So we have designed this challenge as a way to give you momentum on your adventure goals in 2026. And it's a great way to kind of reset and start the year. And we created this for not only beginners, beginners, but also experienced hikers alike. We have a lot of our clients that join us every year in this challenge because they like kind of resetting and refocusing their year and prioritizing adventure in their life because they see adventure and adventurous living and courageous living as a core value, like I do. So here is what we will be covering in our 5-day challenge. So day 1, we are going to be talking all about your adventure mindset. You're going to walk away after this day with a strong understanding of how adventure confidence is actually built so that the fear and self-doubt stop stalling you from getting out on the trail. And then on day 2, we're going to be talking all about your 2026 adventure plan. So in this lesson, I'm going to teach you how to create a clear and fun plan that you can actually follow to create more adventure in your year. And we're going to map it all out together in that lesson. And day 3 is all about building your adventure community. And you're going to walk away with simple strategies to find hiking and backpacking friends and the confidence to move forward, even if you don't have any yet. On day 4 of our challenge week, we're going to be talking all about your adventure body. You're going to walk away with practical, realistic approach to building strength and endurance that fits into your real life, no matter where you're starting from. And then on day 5, we're going to talk about your adventure skills. So you're going to walk away knowing which skills to focus on building this year to become more self-sufficient, and exactly what to do next if you want to keep going with a proven framework and supportive community by your side. So this is a virtual 5-day challenge. It's a great way to kick off the year. Our calls will be hosted on Zoom live each day of the challenge, January 12th through 16th, and there will be free 48-hour replays. The whole event is free and registration is officially open. So again, you can sign up for that challenge by going to shedreamsofalpine.com/challenge. Okay, so now let's dive into today's episode. I officially entered my, speaking of adventure eras, I officially entered my adventure era back in 2013. So this was the year that I got invited on my very first backpacking trip to hike Half Dome in Yosemite National Park. And that year changed everything for me. And I went all in on adventurous living and having an adventurous life. So since then, being adventurous is just part of who I am. It's an integral part of how I see myself, how I plan my years. It's integrated into my day-to-day routines and my annual rituals. So one thing that I love to do every year is spend some time reflecting back on my past year's adventures and then thinking forward to what I want this year's adventures to look like. And it doesn't mean planning everything at once, but it does mean being more intentional and purposeful with the things that are really high priority on my list. And I always find that at the beginning of the year, I kind of know what I want the next year to sort of look like and what my bigger focuses are. Last year, I got a puppy in January. So January 2025, technically the end of December, but around January 2025, I got a new puppy. His name is Oliver. And a lot of my adventures had to stay more local because he was really little and he was still learning how to be a good boy and learning how to travel and learning how to be calm. So we had to take things really slowly with him in 2025, especially because, they can't go as long of distances when they're little and they're really afraid of things. So they have to learn to build courage, all of the things, just like us, right? But that really paid off because we ended the year with a really great dog. And I really expect to be able to take him on a lot more adventures in 2026. So when it comes to what my focus is for 2026 adventures and what's on my adventure radar, so to speak, I'm going to start off with that. I'm going to start off with adventures with Oliver because he is a big part of my adventurous life right now. So one of the things that I'm going to continue to do is I'm going to continue training with Oliver. So continue our training together so that our adventures continue to run smoothly. And he's only a year old, so he still has more to learn. So some of the things that we're focused on now that he's past the really intense puppy phase is we're practicing, my trainers call it auto watch, but it's basically him being able to be calm when we go out to places and be able to sit and see distractions and see people running around and go to places and lay down on a mat and just be bored and observe and not really interact. So we're working on that continuously. He did so good. The other day we took him to a bagel shop and he just like sat next to my feet and just chilled out the whole time. So that's exactly what we want to continue to reinforce. I'm also going to be working on loose leash training more with him. That is something we haven't really prioritized. So honestly, he's not very good at it. I really have just like let him kind of do whatever. He's not 10 pounds. He's 15 pounds. So he's a little bit of a smaller dog. So it's a bit easier, but that is something that I would like to work on more. We're also going to work more on crate training for van traveling. So I have a camper van and I hope to take him on more adventures in that. So he needs to learn how to be comfortable in his crate in the van. It's always like new environments. There's like a new thing you're introducing. And again, I also wrote down like do nothing training, which is similar to what I mentioned with Auto Watch, but more specifically, like I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but I want to go climbing a lot in 2026. And I think one day he will be good enough to be able to go out with us on climbing trips, but he needs to be more calm and be able to do nothing in any environment. So right now, he's still a little too wiggly to be able to take him to places like that and not be paying attention to him a whole lot. So we're going to start practicing that. We'll start in small areas and where I can pay a lot of attention to him and just build that slowly. And then finally, recall. I don't know if I'll ever get to a place where I really fully have Oliver off leash. He is a sight hound, so he's an Italian greyhound. And he is kind of one of those dogs that sometimes if like a squirrel runs by, it gets like his sight hound is just like triggered and he just runs after it no matter what. But I still want to always work on recall in case, you know, for some reason he did get loose and we have worked on that. So I want to continue to work on that with him. But in general, I'm just excited to be able to bring him more and more on my own hiking adventures because now he can hike longer miles than he used to. And I'm also excited to take him on road trips since he has proven that he can handle the car trips much better than he used to. So when he was a puppy, he actually really struggled to be in the car and we really had to like slowly build up him having less anxiety in the car. And we're finally in a good place with that. So I'd love to bring him on some of my road trips. I also want to start running with him 2 or 3 times a week. There is this fun little sport that sight hounds are really good at called canicross. I only see people in the UK call it this, but I love the idea of it. But you're running with your dog, canicross. I'd like to take him with me to Moab for my annual trip. I didn't get to go last year mostly because of him, because I wanted to go, but I had so many other things planned. I didn't want to like leave Michael just with Oliver for that trip. And so this year I'll be able to take him with me. I'd also love to take him on his very first flight. He's a small enough dog. He should be able to fly with me on the plane in the cabin, but he needs to train up for that. There's a lot of things he needs to practice and work on. It's also going to be his first time staying with a dog sitter longer term for a couple adventure trips that we have booked this year. And last but not least, related to Oliver and adventures is I want to take Oliver on his very first backpacking trip this year. So I don't know if that will be easy or hard. So that's one of those things that I'm going to have to train up for. I talk about this a lot with my clients that have dogs. We have to, take it really slowly with them, especially if they've never done anything like that. So I already know Oliver is a great hiker. He drinks water well. He eats whatever I put in front of him. So the food aspect and the water aspect and the hiking aspect, he's got that dialed in. So what I really need to practice next with him is I'm probably going to do a car camping trip with him first, but where I don't take the camper van and instead take like actual camping gear, because I need to figure out what our setup is going to be with the sleeping pads and the sleeping bags, see how he does. Is he anxious? Is he comfortable? What adjustments do I need to make? So I have a feeling. So my last Italian greyhound went backpacking with us all the time, and he loved to snuggle, and he would just curl up in a ball inside of my sleeping bag on my tiny little sleeping pad, and we would just sleep there together, and it was easy, very easy. But Oliver is he's kind of a snuggler, but he more sprawls out. Like, so when he sleeps, he doesn't curl into a ball like Lincoln does. He pushes his legs out and he takes up as much room as possible. But he's also like tiny and doesn't have a ton of fur. So he's probably going to still need to be in my sleeping bag with me. So this is going to be the interesting part. I'm just going to have to work this out, but I might have to get a slightly wider sleeping pad for when I backpack with Oliver. And I might have to have a slightly, maybe a quilt or something with more give that I can use as my sleeping bag when I camp with Oliver. It will just depend. I'm going to have to see. That's going to be a test. And I'm going to have to adjust my gear accordingly and do a short overnight and see how it goes. I'll probably do something really small at first and then go from there. So I'm hoping to do that this year in the summer with Oliver and take him on his first backpacking trip. I think he'll love it, but there's a lot of question marks that I kind of need to figure out first. Okay, so moving on from Oliver, another thing on my adventure radar is client trips. So part of She Dreams of Alpine is we host some in-person stuff. Our core thing that we do at She Dreams of Alpine is our digital program, our Backpacking Badass course, where we teach you everything you need to know about becoming a safe, confident, and self-sufficient backpacker. But we have, over the last few years, integrated some in-person experiences as well. So what I have on my 2026 radar in terms of that so far is we have our Joshua Tree Women's Rock Climbing Retreat. That is happening in March. That trip is already fully booked out. It booked out last year. We have a group of 18 women coming for a really long weekend of camping and climbing and hiking together. And it's a special time. So I usually road trip out there and then I spend the weekend with those ladies and getting to climb with those ladies. So that is super fun. We've been doing that for a few years now in a row. And then in May, our next in-person thing that's on our calendar is our second international rock climbing retreat. So we did one in 2024, at the end of 2024 in Spain. And we took a group of like 8 or 9 women. I think it was 8 women that ended up going on that trip. They're a little bit more intimate, smaller groups. And that was just so fun. That trip was amazing. And I had been to Spain before and climbing in that area before. So it was really fun to get to show that place to some women out there. And then this year we had the idea, I reached out to my partners out in the UK who run, stuff out there. And we put together another trip. But this time we're going to Kalymnos, Greece. So it's an island in Greece, and I have actually never been there, but I've heard amazing things about the rock climbing out there. And we booked that out pretty early in August last year. So we have 10 women signed up to join us for that in May. So that is another really fun thing that we have planned. If you're interested in ever staying in the loop on our climbing retreats, you can join our waitlist for those at shedreamsofalpine.com/climb. That should take you to the right landing page for our waitlist. Now, I will say we always give first dibs on our in-person stuff to our existing clients. So whether you're a past She Dreams of Alpine retreat client or a past Backpacking Badass student or existing Backpacking Badass student, you would always get first dibs on these. And our rock climbing trips tend to fill up with existing clients. So those don't often, but when we do have open spots that don't fill from our existing client sphere, we open it up to the wait list first. So that is the very next best place to be, is on the wait list. And our other trips that we have planned this year are for our Adventurous Reinvention Experience program. So that is a program we started in 2023 that is part coaching experience and part in-person backpacking retreats. So the backpacking retreats part of that experience usually takes place in late July and early August. Like I've been telling my clients, right now we're still waiting on permits to finalize dates. But I've been telling my clients to mentally block off July 28th through August 18th timeframe. The trips will most likely take place in that timeframe. There will probably be, this year, we're hoping to maybe have 3 trips. So last year, the past few years, we've only done 2 trips, but this year we might add a 3rd. And those are backpacking trips with clients in the Eastern Sierras. Probably one of the most special things that we do here at She Dreams of Alpine. And like just such a beautiful way to like get to meet people in real life and get to do a fun challenge in the mountains together. I really, really cherish these times. So even though these are client trips, I really value them and I really love going on them with my clients every year. So if you're curious about the Adventurous Reinvention experience, you can learn more about that at shedreamsofalpine.com/ARE. I will also link these things in the show notes, but that's just in case you are listening and you want to type it on your phone. Okay, so Oliver Adventures, client trips, those are kind of like things I've been thinking about, but a big theme for my 2026 is going to be around rock climbing, which for those of you who listen to this podcast, it might not come as a surprise. It's kind of been a big focus for me the last couple of years, but it's even more so in 2026. I haven't fully shaped out this yet and like what I exactly want to do around it. But my big goal around rock climbing in 2026 is to lead a 512 outside. So if you want to learn more about that, I did like a whole episode back in August around this big goal of leading a 512 outside and doing it clean without falls. So probably picking a project somewhere, committing to it, and then hopefully one day leading it cleanly without falling outside. So that would be like the hardest climb, lead climb I have ever done. So that's why I wanted to stretch myself to do it. It seems really out of my league at this point, but actually after, I committed to this goal back in August, and this is kind of me recommitting to it because I haven't done it yet. But those few months I've done of training leading up to this point, I've already seen so many gains. So I feel like this goal can totally happen. It feels like if I really give it my all and put my energy into it, like I can really make it happen. So that's very exciting. I feel very excited about it. And my climbing partner and I will be kicking off like our next block of climbing training. So we have been doing really focused, committed climbing training. And the last month has been kind of a wash with the holidays, but we're recommitting here in this next week to our training plan and moving forward with trying to achieve that goal, because that's also her goal as well. So we also try to get outside as often as we can, once a week on a good week, but at least a couple times a month if we can, because the big goal is to be climbing outside more often. And just sometimes logistically, especially in the winter, it's a little bit harder. I'd also like to plan at least one long weekend trip outdoors a quarter. So I would really love to go to, there's like a few places on my radar. I'd really love to go to the Red River Gorge this year. I've never been there. So it's been one of those places I've heard is amazing for sport climbing, and I've never been there, and I've just always wanted to go. So I would really love to do that. I would love to go back up to Vegas to climb and to sport climb. I would love to go back to Ten Sleep in Wyoming. That is one of my favorite places to climb as well. Honestly, there are so many spots on my list, but I think I'm going to try to prioritize at least once a quarter going somewhere to rock climb, and maybe a longer weekend versus just a day trip, which is what Charlie and I, my climbing partner, tend to do. Is like we'll go up to Shelf Road on the weekend or something local in Colorado Springs, and we'll climb there, which is great and amazing, and probably where one of our projects will live because it's easier for us to get to. But I would also love to go to some other places. So that is a big focus for my year, is around that and like doing trips around that. I often have like a big adventure planned each year. So last year I did the West Highland Way through hike in Scotland. But I don't have one currently. It doesn't mean one won't pop up, but right now, like I feel just really focused on the rock climbing goal that I don't feel like I have a really big one specifically to hiking. Maybe you could consider my Kalymnos rock climbing trip to be my big trip, but it's also a client trip. So it is more focused on taking care of clients, making sure they have a good experience. But that will be fun for me too, because I've never been to that area as well. But usually I like to have a big adventure on the calendar each year. But right now I'm not sure if I will or if something else might come up along the way. We'll have to see. Mini adventures though, I do have a few other things outside of climbing that are like on my immediate radar. So one thing that has been on my mind, and I told some clients about this the other day, but some backstory. Let me start with backstory, actually. My friend and I, we did a whole podcast episode, and there's a full series, actually, a trail series on this, but we did the Royal Arch Loop in the Grand Canyon. And it's one of the most technical backpacking trips I've ever done or heard about. And it's has a lot of things. It's very technical, can be very dangerous. Anyways, my friend told me the other day, we were climbing together, and she was like, I'd really love to go back and do that trip, but with a slight variation. She wants to do the canyoneering section of the Royal Arch Loop. So the Royal Arch part, there is a canyon you can canyoneer down, and essentially you would skip part of the backpacking loop and you would do the canyoneer part and then end with the same loop. So it would be really technical, and currently is outside of my zone of genius and skills, because I am not as much of a canyoneer. And also for her, she's never done a canyon that technical. She has done a lot more canyoneering than I have. So this year we were talking about potentially doing this together. And it's probably like a few years out. So we were talking about all the ways we would want to get prepared for it. And I think part of it is for me to kind of brush up and start getting back into canyoneering a little bit. So I put on my list of things that I would like to do this year is maybe take a canyoneering class or do a couple of guided trips or something, just to get refreshed and like back into the skill. And then maybe also go on a couple of easy canyoneering trips with my friend Meg, who we're wanting to do this together. So it will be good for us to like go on some smaller trips together, so we can, part of this is like partnership work and like working on those skills together and building that, rapport and trust with each other too, for a more technical trip in the future. Also, she just sent me a picture that she bought a raft, and I really have this future desire to go rafting more. And so maybe there's some rafting in our future, but I will let Meg let me know if that's happening, because it's her raft. Another thing, a shout out to Meg if she's listening to this, is another Grand Canyon backpacking trip. A tradition that has slowly started is a backpacking trip with Meg in the Grand Canyon once a year. This year we went on the Escalante route. The year before we did the Royal Arch Loop. And so I think there's already one on Meg's radar. So I'll probably just go in on that with her. I love to do something in the fall, and I would love to either go to Crested Butte or Ouray, just for fall stuff. It's beautiful. But anywhere with beautiful fall colors, I will be happy to do. I want to do more solo stuff. So more solo backpacking trips, of course. I love exercising that muscle. I already do a lot of things solo, but I just like to purposely put solo things on the calendar too. I'm not really sure where else yet. That will probably be more of my spontaneous stuff, is some of my solo trips. And the only other thing I have written down in this kind of like mini adventure section is I probably have to renew my wilderness first responder. I think it's going to be up for renewal at the end of this year. So that's probably something I also need to put on the calendar to do this year as well. So for those of you who have not done wilderness first responder training, in order to keep it active and up to date, which we do because we're leading and guiding clients on trips, I have to just go do that every couple of years. So other really random but adventure kind of tangent things that are on my radar that I kind of want to do and I've been thinking about this year are things like, they're kind of generic, so I need to make them a little bit more specific soon. But right now, just from the top of my head of things that I've been thinking about. But I want to get really strong. So a lot of that is going to happen with my 512 climbing. It's just going to inevitably make me really strong. But I also want to do and integrate some more lifting into my routine. I want to make sure my legs are getting strong too. I also want to see if I can get defined abs. I've never had that. That's just like a weird, fun, random thing that I think just aligns with all the hard work I'm going to be doing with climbing. So I'm not really like as committed to that one. It's not, for me, the 512 is way more important than having definition in my abs. But I just thought that could be a fun one to see if it's possible. A really random thing that I also want to do is do a handstand. I've never done a handstand before, and calisthenics work is just like so useful too with climbing. It's all of this like core work, this getting stronger, being able to do a handstand, like all of it just benefits the things that I really want to do, which is the 512 climbing goal. It just seems like a fun thing to be able to do. I also want to get better at starting mobility practice, like basically daily mobility work, just to keep my body like nice and limber and all of those things. This is something I started in 2025, but I kind of want to bring it more into 2026. And then really randomly, something that I told Michael that I want to do, which Michael is my husband, is I want to get into salsa dancing like more and do it like once a week or once every other week with him and get good at it, like actually get good at it. So that's not quite adventure related, but sort of maybe like it's moving your body, doing something fun. So that's on my list too. And to kind of like wrap the vision up, what my week to week will likely look like on most weeks is routine training. So because my goal is so outside of what I've done before, I am going to have to be a little bit more disciplined with it. I am doing rock climbing training, which is usually happening 3 or 4 times a week. I will probably have to integrate some lifting into there, daily mobility practice, and then I will need to sneak in cardio in there to maintain, my fitness for all the backpacking and hiking and the retreats that we do. So usually in the summer, I'm always doing the training plans that we create for our clients with my clients. So that's just easily integrated. I just incorporate that into my life. And, I love to get and go out on hikes in the summer anyways. In the winter, I kind of have to like get myself out there a little bit more often because I'm like just focused on climbing. It's colder. But I will also be integrating that as well. And then week to week, hopefully getting outside to climb on the weekend, at least for one day, or heading off on a little adventure with Oliver. That's normally what my weeks are looking like unless I have a bigger thing planned. So I still want to think through some of these adventure goals more so that I can start to map it out a little bit better, put some things on my calendar. And this is actually some of the work that we do in the Your Adventure Era Challenge. So I'm going to be talking all about my process for how I personally do this on day 2 of our challenge, which again, you can register for the challenge at shedreamsofalpine.com/challenge. And if you register for the Your Adventure Era Challenge, then you also have the chance to grab, we call it our All Access Pass, which includes a reflection journal. So it's adventure focused. So it's being able to reflect on your past year and the adventures that you had and what you might want to bring forward and call into the new year. And it also includes, your All Access Pass also includes an adventure, like a goal planner that you can use to plan out your 2026 adventures for the year. So if you want to like do that work with an actual dedicated planner, if you grab our All Access Pass for the Your Adventure Era Challenge, it includes a bunch of things, but those are 2 really useful resources that you can also grab. So this work is so important because doing things for ourselves can easily get swept to the side if we save it for later. So it's better to get that vision mapped out early so that it's easier for you to follow through. At least that's what I have experienced. And I'm just about to go get the journal and our adventure planner printed off at Office Max and do those reflections for myself and kind of finally put some of those dates that I've been talking through about my goals on my calendar and get it like dialed in. So I'm working on that this month as well. And yeah, that's just a little bit of a sneak peek of what I'm looking forward to this year. And that is it for this episode. I just thought it might be interesting to see what it's like and see what I'm considering as a full-time outdoor educator and life coach, what's on my calendar, what's in my adventure focus for 2026. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to chat about anything you're curious on. You can always send me a DM on Instagram at shedreamsofalpine. Again, be sure that you register for our free challenge coming up, the Your Adventure Era Challenge. We're going to be talking all about these things at that challenge. It's going to be such a fun week. Again, you can go to shedreamsofalpine.com/challenge. All right. It's going to be so fun. I hope to see you there, and we'll talk soon. Bye. Hey, I wanted to thank you real quick for tuning into the show and listening all the way to the end. If you love this episode and you want deeper support in becoming a safe, confident, and self-sufficient hiker and backpacker, then head over to shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist to learn more about our Backpacking Badass coaching program, where I teach you absolutely everything you need to know to be self-reliant on the trails and stop waiting around on others for the adventure invite. So I'd love to help you more in your journey of stepping into your adventurous identity, and that program is the absolute best place for us to start working together. So again, that's shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist, and you can learn all about it there. So that's it for today, folks. I hope you get to spend some time outside this week, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new episode. Bye.